Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel and welcome to a special bonus weather video, and I'm actually going to make this available to all subscription levels. Today, September 10th, is the climatological peak of the hurricane season, so I thought it would be interesting to see where we stand so far with respect to the average dates that the first, second, third, and so forth storm form, and how we compare to that. So that's what we're going to do now, and I'm going to start off here by taking a look at simply the named storms. Now, if you take a look at the period from 1991 to 2020, there are on average 14 named storms per season. Okay, now we're up to 13 so far. But what's interesting about this is, and you see the name of the storm, the date it formed, or the date it became named, and then the average date based on climatology of when that storm typically forms by, how far ahead or behind we are, and how long these storms actually lasted. Okay, so Arlene, Brett, and Cindy all got going very, very quickly, and so the average date that we normally get to our third named storm is August 3rd. Well, we are way ahead of that, 42 days ahead. And then Don was the first hurricane of the year. We were 32 days ahead when Don got going. And then Emily, we had a little bit of a break there from July 14th to August 20th. So at that point, we were only 2 days ahead of the climatological dates. But then things started to change and change in a hurry. We had actually four named storms form in a 2-day period: Emily, Franklin, Gert, and Harold. And then Idalia on the 27th, Jose on the 31st, and all the way down to Lee and Margot. And of course, those two are still in progress. And right now, Margot, the 13th named storm of the year, typically doesn't form until October 25th. So that means we're 48 days ahead of climatology. Now, the one thing I do want to point out, though, is that look at the duration, the right-hand column here of this table. And several of these storms really never amounted to anything and didn't last all that long. Arlene only lasted 2 days. Emily only lasted 2 days. Gert is sort of an enigma here because it only lasted for 1 day, and then the remnants of it sort of swam around the Atlantic Ocean for several days, and then on the 1st of September it regenerated into a tropical storm for 4 days. So from start to finish, 15 days, but in reality only a tropical storm for 5. Harold was only around for 2. Jose was only around for 3. And I should have looked up the pronunciation. I don't know if it's Katia or Acacia or whatever, but it only lasted 3 days as well. And now Lee, only 6 so far, but all indications are in a week it's still going to be an entity. So it could end up being the longest lasting storm of the season, and Margot is forecast to become a hurricane as well, although it has not done that yet. And the 14th named storm typically happens by November 19th. I think we'll easily be able to beat that. But the bottom line is, with satellites now, more than ever, we can identify these storms that only last a day or two and barely even qualify as a tropical storm. So it makes the season look a little bit more active than it actually is, at least in terms of impact. All right, so now let's take a look at the 4 hurricanes we've had and what the average dates of hurricane formation are based on the 30-year climatology. Hurricane Don was the first one, and it became a hurricane on July 22nd. Average date for the first hurricane is August 11th, so we were 20 days ahead there. Then Franklin occurred a month later, and we were only 4 days ahead of schedule for the second hurricane of the season. But Idalia formed 9 days ahead of climatology, and Lee formed 10 days ahead of climatology. So, we're ahead of schedule, but it isn't quite as impressive as the named storm climatology. And then finally, if we take a look at the major hurricanes, we've had 3 of those so far: Franklin, Idalia, and Lee. We were 4 days ahead of schedule with Franklin. Idalia, we usually don't get the second major until September 19th, so we're 20 days ahead there. And Lee, we usually don't get the third major hurricane until October 28th, and we're 51 days ahead of that. So it's fair to say that this hurricane season has been above normal so far, and undoubtedly will end up being above normal. But I just caution you in terms of the fact that, and I've talked about this ad nauseum for years, the total number of storms really doesn't mean anything. It only matters how strong they get, and more importantly, where they go. Do they actually hit populated areas? And so you'd have to say, so far this season, that Idalia is the one storm that has had the biggest impact by far, and a lot of the other stuff really hasn't, okay? So I call these stat storms, okay, where they go into the record books as being entities for a given hurricane season, but the overall impact may not be all that great. Probably the greatest example of a below normal season that had huge impact was 1992 when Hurricane Andrew hit Homestead, Florida. There were only 7 named storms that season. Only 4 of them were hurricanes. But don't tell anybody in Homestead, Florida that it was a below normal season, because they literally got wiped off the face of the earth. That was a devastating Category 5, and then it made a second landfall along the Gulf Coast, not quite as strong as the Florida landfall, but still very, very respectable. So again, in my mind, the total number of storms really doesn't matter. It just matters how strong they get, and more importantly, where they go. All right, that is the special bonus weather video on this climatological peak of the hurricane season. Hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be back tomorrow with another daily weather update. And the bonus weather video tomorrow will be about something called accumulated cyclone energy. It's another way to measure how strong a hurricane season either is so far, or, was once you get done with the season. So that'll be the topic on the bonus weather video for tomorrow. All right, folks, have a good rest of your Sunday, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. See you later.